Let's go in depth on something a lot of you have been asking about. Nicole wrote in and asked, have you covered the proposed changes to the constitutional amendment? Now, our NC Capitol team has several times, but I personally have not. But since it's controversial, motivated by hot button issues and inspiring some conspiracies out there, I think we should give it a shot, don't you? She's talking about this little section here of your ballot, asking voters to change some of the language around our voting laws, to tighten it up, to keep non-citizens from voting, which on its face doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because the wording already restricts non-citizens from voting. But why don't we go a bit further? Julie asked two simple questions. What is different from what the current Constitution states, and what is the purpose of this amendment? Why don't we start with the differences between the current wording as it is now and the proposed wording, the changes that they're asking us to make. Here they are side by side. And when you do break down the language and you look at the words, the new version proposed by Republican lawmakers does appear to be more inclusive. Now, wait a minute. I can hear all the liberals out there banging their dining room tables or wherever they're sitting and saying, wait a minute, hold on, no way. More inclusive? That's not what Republicans are trying to do. Calm down, chill out a bit. We'll get to the purpose part of the discussion next. But for now, why don't we just take a look at the language? You see, the current law says, as it's written, every person born in the United States and every person who has been naturalized, 18 years of age and so on and so forth, can vote. It specifically names those two groups, people born here and people naturalized. Those are the immigrants who lawfully become citizens. But that leaves out a lot of people, doesn't it? Lots of other citizens. Like, what if Gerald Owens was born today? That's right, your favorite local TV personality wasn't born in the U.S. Neither was J. Cole, Fayetteville's finest, two of our best. Gerald was born in Italy, in Vicenza, and J. Cole was born in Frankfurt, Germany. They're both U.S. citizens, but their type of citizenship isn't expressly mentioned in our Constitution. You see, Gerald's dad was in the Army, so was J. Cole's, and they were born overseas. How many people watching from Fort Liberty can relate to that story? Or what about kids who are born in another country, but their parents move here and then become naturalized citizens? On the Homeland Security website, it says if your biological or adoptive parents become U.S. citizens before you reached the age of 18, you may already be a U.S. citizen and not need to apply for naturalization. There's nothing about those people in the current language. Those people weren't born here. They weren't naturalized. The new language counts them. The proposed amendment says this: only a citizen of the United States who is 18 years of age, etc., so on and so forth. That would count all citizens, regardless of how you became one. You see, this amendment has been classified as some kind of Republican strong-arm tactic, using their supermajority to force this onto the ballot. But you have to remember, lots of Democrats supported putting it up for a vote, 32 in the House, 10 in the Senate. So why the controversy? Well, why don't we go back to Julie's question? What is the purpose of this amendment? It kind of depends, Julie, on your interpretation. You see, Republican lawmakers didn't pitch this change as some inclusive fine-tuning to protect the voting rights of military kids. It was pitched like this.
Our current constitutional language uses the word every, not only. And in one sense, that could permit a future legislature to consider opening the door to non-citizens voting in this state.
Republicans point to some examples where this has happened, never in state law, but in a handful of cities and towns where non-citizens can vote on city business, like Oakland, California, for instance, where since 2022, non-citizen parents who have kids in city schools can vote on the school board. The idea is if someone is raising a family in the U.S., citizen or not, they should have a say in their kids' education, especially if their kids were born in the U.S., which would make those kids citizens automatically. It's a controversial interpretation of the law that has been upheld so far in California courts. But with interpretations, you're going to get a few.
As part of my plan to secure the border on day one of my new term in office, I will sign an executive order making clear to federal agencies that under the correct interpretation of the law, going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship.
that was a campaign video from last May, and the law he's referring to is the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And you're going to find the language a bit familiar. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. It was written in 1866 to grant and protect the citizenship rights of freed slaves and their children. But we're not the only ones who do this. Take a look at this map. If you're born in one of the countries in green there, you're a citizen automatically just because you were born there in that country. 35 countries do this. The rest of the world does not. Do you notice anything about this map that kind of stands out a bit? It's all the countries that Europe found last. People looking for land they could claim as their own and then give to their kids. Birthright citizenship is kind of written into the fabric of our entire hemisphere. If that part of our Constitution changes, then so does our definition of citizen. And why some people think the wording in this amendment, the one you're going to vote on, is set up to follow Trump's lead. If he changes the definition of citizen, North Carolina falls in line. Then again, there is the chance that we're just overthinking all of this. I mean, ignoring the 14th Amendment would probably be tied up in the courts like immediately and forever. Odds are this is just a way to rile everybody up and push those people to the polls. WRAL did a poll in September, and depending on how you look at it, immigration is the #1 issue for Republicans in North Carolina. Lawmakers know that any extra incentive to turn people into voters will help them to win all those other races too. What do you think? Should North Carolina change its constitution? Tell us and then go vote on it, I guess. What do you think about these voting measures that let people decide, not the lawmakers? Send me emails, dan@WRAL.com. We can talk about this or any other news you want to talk about. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go in depth.